Right, this is George with the Talkin podcast. This week we got David Josephs from Held by Trees. How you doing, Dave?
Pretty well, thank you. Nice to see you
Good.
again.
Yeah, it's been a little while, I think, since we've seen each other in person. Um, I would probably say pre 2020.
Yeah, probably is, isn't it? It's been what strange time. That doesn't feel like 3 or 4 years has gone by, but I guess it must have done.
Yeah, yeah, it
And you're not
must
that
have.
far away. You only live down the road, really.
I know, I know. That's the crazy thing, isn't it? Like we can all, 3 or 4 years ago by, and yeah, you don't even really think about it. But I think the last time I saw you in person, we did a wedding gig. I think.
Was that the last time? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't do
yeah.
those anymore.
No, no, I know. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's how long ago it was. It must have been a good while ago. Um, so, how's it going musically?
Musically, it's very, very rewarding at the moment. I feel like I've sort of built up to this really for my whole musical career to this project Held by Trees, which I'm involved with, that began in 2020 during lockdown, um, and has kind of taken its own mad journey in the last 3 and a bit years since the very first demos were put down at home during lockdown to the point where we've released an album and then two EPs, and we've got a bunch of new pieces of music that we're working on at the moment as well. So it's all going forwards really nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Well, I've needless to say, I've checked out your stuff, and I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. It just, yeah, for the obvious guitar reasons, but just purely from a music standpoint, as a listener of music, I'm really enjoying what you guys are putting out. Um,
Thanks,
so,
man. Means a lot coming from you.
oh, well, yeah, no, I mean it. I genuinely do. Um, so, yeah, you said you got a couple of EPs together, and you've got an album. Um, like, talk to me about how this started in back in 2020 or so. What was the initial sort of idea behind the band, and how did it all come together?
Sure. Okay. So it started, um, like I say, at home during the first lockdown in the spring of 2020. I've been making instrumental music for some time already, uh, and had released various sort of different projects under different names, some under my name, some under slightly different names, just to keep the music separate from each other and not confuse anyone who was into one thing and not necessarily into the other, because some of it was kind of drone based and quite dark, and some of it was very light and twinkly and ambient. And That started to go quite well for me, and I felt very comfortable making instrumental music. I've done a lot of singer songwritery things in the past and rock bands, and yeah, but got to a point where I think I'd lost some confidence as a vocalist, and probably got to the point where I was quite sort of suspicious of everything I was trying to write song wise. Like I just felt like there was nothing left to say. I didn't have anything left I wanted to sing, and so instrumental music was a really rewarding sort of satisfying way of continuing to create without the kind of confusion of how my voice fitted into that and what I should write about. So I began to muck about on my home setup during lockdown, and came up in one day, in 24 hours, I came up with 3 pieces of music. Or was it over the course of 2 days? Actually, I think 3 pieces of music that I immediately had a sense that there was something different about them, and that they were a very new direction for me. And I was pulling on the inspiration that I've had for a long time, and influence from, particularly from the later Talk records, Spirit of Eden, Laughing Stock, and Mark Hollis from Talk made one solo record in 1998, which I love, and sort of see them as a continuum, those records. And for those who don't know, that music has a really sparse, minimalist quality to it, that's very textural, very ambient, very atmospheric, and quite a long way outside of traditional song structures. And yeah, just the vibe of these demos, which I'd kind of put down some drum patterns and some chords and a little bit of guitar and a kind of MIDI, like Logic, double bass sound. And that was it, really. It's only about 3 or 4, maybe 5, bit of Hammond, MIDI Hammond tracks on any of these pieces of music, but I felt like the space within them, and I really do think it was to do with the kind of the quiet of lockdown, that first lockdown. The world just seemed so much more quiet, and I think I had a bit of a peace internally as well as externally. I guess a break from everyday life. So I had these demos, and I thought I'd show them to a couple of people. So I sent, like a WeTransfer link to a few people that I respect. And to cut a story short, through some people that I know and I've worked with, I got to connect with some of the guys that worked on Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock and worked with Hollis. So I thought, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if there was new music with some of these amazing musicians playing on, the music again. Because one of the things that Talk did, they didn't just confine it to the 3 or 4 guys in the band. They invited loads of musicians into the studio to improvise on their music. So I thought, I'll do the same thing. I'll find some musicians that are sympathetic to this kind of music, and I'll ask them if they want to play. And it ended up with, including the artist James Marsh, who did all of their artwork, it ended up with 8 veterans of those albums collaborating on the first Hell by Trees album, Solace. And that includes, people, mutual friends of ours, like Robbie McIntosh, who many people will know as a legendary sidesman. He was in the Pretenders, and then Paul McCartney recruited him, and he played with McCartney for 5 years in the studio and touring around the world. And then he worked with like Tom Jones and Norah Jones, no relation, and ended up with John Mayer in the sort of the noughties. But he's got a long and wonderful solo catalogue as well. He's a brilliant songwriter, brilliant musician. He's not just a great guitarist, he's a brilliant drummer. He's just an all-rounder, really great singer as well. But anyway, he actually lives near you, doesn't he? He lives down Weymouth Way. Yeah. And I'd met him a couple of times, just bumped into him a few times. But he works out of a studio really close to where I live, just up the road in Ringwood, called Room with a View.
Yeah.
And that's where I decided I was going to try and start fleshing out these demos into a record.
Right.
But it ended up with so many. I think a cast of about 30 different musicians playing on that first album.
Wow. That's a massive, like, what I love about what you just said there about the beginnings of this was you started it in the first lockdown, and you had this period, like you said, where you had peace and you were removed from your everyday regular life. But you were also at a place in your life where you were obviously wanting to create music, but wanting to do it in a different way, in a
Yeah,
slightly different format than you'd approached before. And I think it's interesting because you're a vocalist as well as a guitarist, but to relinquish that vocal side of things and just focus on writing the music without that factor in it must have freed you up, and must have, because it's interesting, like, sometimes to be creative you need to take an element away, not add an element. And in your case, you took away the vocals and then just started writing, and then things, you know, built built up from there. And like you said, like you did a thing where you sent a few people that you respected what you were doing at that moment, and what they must have said must have sort of like helped you along in your convictions with the songs, and you thought, right, I can actually do something with this.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. I was so encouraged by Phil Brown in particular, who's the engineer that recorded Spirit of Eden and Laughing Stock and
mm,
the Hollis solo record, and he's probably just as well known for being Island Records chief engineer through the 70s. So he made some like he recorded the first, I think, 3 Bob Marley and the Wailers albums.
wow.
His first ever session when he's a teenager was Jimi Hendrix recording All Along the Watchtower. That's his
What?
first ever session. He was a tape op. Um, so
Wow.
that's not a bad start.
No, no. As far as
No,
starts go, yeah, that's
pretty amazing.
yeah,
But he made other albums that I adore, like John Martin's One World album, um, and he made Brian Kennedy's The Great War of Words, and but I mean those are my favourite ones. But he's really well known for having worked in the last, I guess it's 20 years, just about. The last massive thing he did was Dido's first album, which just went like crazy, like so popular all around the world. So
yeah,
thank you and all that kind of stuff that Eminem sampled, and
yeah,
he recorded all that and worked closely with Faithless and Maxi Priest, and he's still doing a bit, although he's kind of pretty much retired to his allotment.
mm,
But he comes out and he mixes our records as well.
wow,
And he is just amazing. And he's the guy. So Tim Rennick is the mutual friend that introduced me to Phil. And Tim's best known as Pink Floyd's touring guitarist. And I'd
right,
done an ambient track with him the year previous. So in 2019, he and I did a long form instrumental track, which recently our first album was re-released on Lasgo Records with a second disc, and that track's on it, and the demos are on it, and some alternative mixes and stuff.
yeah,
But it's thanks to Tim Rennick actually that I got to know Phil, and
mm,
Phil introduced me then to Martin Ditcham, the percussionist who worked with Hollis and Talk Talk, and then I started to think, well, I can get hold of Robbie. I wonder who else I can find, and I literally used Facebook to track some of these other musicians down,
right, yeah,
like a proper little stalker.
Yeah, yeah,
But thankfully they were up for it, and two of those guys have joined the band, the live version of Held by Trees, because we've
yeah.
been gigging for nearly a year now. So we've got three Hollis veterans, including Robbie, in the live band, and yeah, and Eric Bibb played on it, and Mike Smith, who's out with Blur at the moment, and works closely with Damon. And Blur for me are my favourite band, and having people that are from the Blur camp was just mind blowing for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and David Knopfler, co-founder of Dire Straits, plays some guitar. So it's got several of my sort of heroes, because I'm that sleeve note reading kid, that music geek that avidly reads the sleeve notes and
Right.
figures out who's doing what. And some of these guys I've just been in awe of for so long. So to actually have worked with them and recorded with them and put something out together has just been the most profoundly beautiful journey.
Wow. Yeah. No, I can imagine, man. Like everybody you just mentioned there was just some colossal names in music that these people have worked with, and to have them on board just must be like, yeah, to their input, bringing what I assume is, and I was going to ask you next, like, so the first three songs that you demoed, that you put together yourself as a demo sort of thing, um, you wrote all of that yourself. The other songs that you're putting together on your two EPs and your album, is this a collaborative effort, or is it for the most part like you write it and then bring it to the band and they flesh it out?
Yeah, generally. So everything on Solace was very much from my genesis, I guess, and then handing them over to people to improvise over. With Eventide, which is one of the EPs that came out just a few months ago. So we did two EPs recorded at Real World Studios last year. Did one EP a day. We were there for 2 days and did 5 tracks from Solace in a live recording. So
Yeah.
we've got them here actually. So we've got Solace live at Real World Studios. That was day one, and then day two we tracked 5 brand new pieces of music,
Right.
which are kind of in like a because we're quite proggy, so it's kind of a concept record. It takes you from broad daylight to nighttime.
Right.
And there's 5 brand new tracks on there, and 2 of those were created on the day, completely improvised.
Right.
And that's something that everyone obviously had I had a direction and I was producing it, but there's a lot going on that was totally each of the musicians' own contribution.
Yeah.
And because so much of it's improv and it's instrumental, so it's very much prioritizing, lead instruments, and that is all credit to the musicians. There's nothing of me in those lead breaks on sax or flute or guitar, obviously, or piano. It's the guys being themselves and responding to the music.
Sure. I can see like that, how that facilitates it, because you've got these great players with these amazing histories of who they've worked with, and they're all fantastic improvisers. And to me, like it's almost like providing this bed for these musicians to kind of just like lie on, and like this ambient bit thing that you can sort of create, and then they can do their magic over with it.
Exactly.
Let their personalities show through.
yeah, and that's really important to me, that the musicians don't have really much direction from me after the diving board has been put in front of them. So these
Mm.
chord progressions and drum patterns
Yeah,
generally are my bit, and I put
yeah,
them in front of them, and then they jump off and do their
yeah,
thing. And I think for people like Robbie and Andy on the sax and clarinet and flute, Robbie obviously on guitar.
yeah,
Often they're told what to do in sessions. Um,
sure.
for pop and rock, they're often sort of, I guess, kind of funneled a certain way. Whereas with Held by Trees, I think one of the things I'm hoping we're doing is celebrating these guys and giving them,
Mm.
here's a canvas for you to paint on. Do your
Yeah,
thing, just open up, let rip. And occasionally I'll have ideas about whether to rein it in there or explode more there or whatever.
mm.
So I'm almost more of a conductor in that sense. But
Yeah,
it's really important to me that they all feel like they can really be themselves and bring their unique flavour to the mix, to
sure.
the cake.
Yeah, but that's so much about how you are as a person, right? Because if you were, what's the word, like more constrictive about what it is that you want done with the music, I guess the less creative and the less that those artists can be with your music, because I've had enough experiences now knowing working with certain people. Some people have a very particular thing that they've got in mind that they want you to do for them.
Mm.
And then others, they're just like, yeah, I just do your thing, whatever it is. But the people that you've got on board are so good at what they do, and they're such like their personalities shine through so much when they're playing. Like it would be a travesty if you wouldn't let that happen organically,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just
And the
yeah,
longer the project has gone on, and the more time I've spent with them and in rehearsal or playing live or recording,
mm,
the more important what you're saying, is so true. It's the more important it gets that they feel an ownership within this project. And I really I really love being the kind of the weakest link in the chain musically, in many ways. But I guess it's the idea, isn't it? It's an idea. Um, what if we created this, like you say, bed or kind of or structure or a stretch of music where there's so much space and opportunity, and there's such a sympathy, or is it symphony? With how these guys work together, and that was a risk because until we got in the same room, a lot of them hadn't met each other before.
yeah,
Um, so there could have been a kind of awkwardness to that, and a sort of
mm,
there's definitely he was an educated guess because I'd worked with each of them to make the record,
mm,
but then getting in the same room to rehearse and figuring out how we bring this sort of patchwork quilt to a live audience, because there's 30 musicians on Solace, but there's 6 of us in the band, and only 4 of us in that 6 played on Solace. There was
right,
a couple of other guys that were right to bring in at that point and have since made their mark on the stuff we've recorded.
yeah,
So Paul Beavis on the drums, and James Grant on bass and double bass. And they're very much a part of our community. I've worked out now since we started, including everyone that's worked on all the stuff that we haven't released yet, we've got over 50 musicians that have played with Held by Trees in one form or
Wow.
another.
Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of new stuff I'm working away on, and then when we play live, we often invite musicians from the support band to come up and jam, because we always do improv live.
Yeah. Wow. I saw a clip the other day of you doing because I think you said in the description of it, every show we do a live improvised piece. And I love that. That's just does it feel each time you do it? Does it feel like because of the people that you're working with, you know that it's going to go well, or do you have a moment before you get playing where you're like, what are we going to do?
Well, we try and make it hard for ourselves by asking the audience to choose the key.
Wow. Okay.
So the audience choose a key. First one to
Yeah.
shout out a key, we do it in that key.
Right.
So
Okay.
so then we that means that it's completely randomized.
Yeah.
Um,
That's fully. Yeah.
yeah. And then generally, also we've asked the audience to pick one of us to start it.
Right.
So then it's randomized again.
Yeah, that is.
So it could be the drums starting. It could be it could be double bass starting.
Yeah.
I think my favourite thing in music is to be surprised.
Oh yeah.
And I think when you're attempting improv and spontaneity, there's always that knife edge that things could collapse, things could just go really wrong. And sometimes they don't. It's not the slickest thing ever, for sure, but there's enough intuition and professional experience to kind of be on the fly and pick things up within one or two kind of rotations of an idea.
Yeah.
So it generally revolves around sort of a 3 or 4 chord progression, and then we might chuck a turnaround in there of some sort.
Yeah.
And then we let it rise and fall, and people can take solos, and we bring it right down, and
Yeah. Right.
they tend to last about 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, like you said, all of your musical intuition is going to be there, isn't it? And they're all tasteful people, and you can they can all read the room and read each other really well, I can imagine.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's growing as we go forward and keep playing with each other, and that you'll know this, that you can't just click your fingers and have instant intuition. You can have a certain amount of kind of experience with improv,
Right.
and a willingness to watch and listen to each other, but it's only after you really get used to each other's kind of flavors that you sort of start to really intuit properly without having to kind of over communicate who's going to do what when and it. But the caliber of of these musicians is that we sort of, every time we play, we surprise ourselves somehow.
Yeah.
They're still pulling stuff out of the bag that I would not. I just stand in awe.
Yeah.
It's hard to concentrate on what I'm doing sometimes, because I'm just so blown away by what the guys are doing.
Yeah.
It's such a joy. It's
Love
such
it.
a joy.
So, just from because this podcast is obviously called Talking Tone, so we're talking generally musically here, which is great. But I do want to hone in a little bit more on the guitar aspect of things, from your point of view, and maybe if you can shine a little bit of a light on Robbie's point of view without probably, not being able to speak for himself here. But
we'll get him on the podcast.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him. Yeah, send him a message. Definitely, I would love that. So the obviously the songs, they're things that you're coming up with. So from a guitar point of view, um, how are you sort of like going about writing this stuff? Is it because I know that you've said you're really like looking to create like an atmosphere, a mood for these
Mm.
individuals to kind of latch onto. Um, but once you and Robbie are in the same room together, like how are you both communicating when you're talking about guitar? Is it very much like you know each other now, so you know what each other's bringing to the table, so it's almost like an unspoken thing, or is it a little bit more arranged in places?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely arrangements because yeah, it's just it needs to be arranged for a live context where there's six of us on the stage and we've all got our roles, but we can't all be playing over the top of each other the whole time. So we do have crib sheets where so it's organized improv in a way because it's like, oh, it's your turn now. This is your so verse one will be sax, verse two will
Right.
be piano, and that's
So
something
you've all got sheets there, and you've just sort of that's
yeah.
helping.
Well,
There's a guide.
yeah, we've kind of memorized it for a lot of the material now, but
Right. Sure.
certainly everyone kind of having their moment to kind of lead the music. And I'll sometimes be calling that out. Like we'll stick with what Lawrence is doing. So amazing on the piano. We're going to stick with that. Just let him because he's off now. Let him
Yeah.
run. But
Yeah.
guitar wise with Robbie, yeah, it's the same. I mean, if he's tearing it up within his allotted thing, great. But sometimes it's like keep it going.
Right.
Let's take it up the next level.
Sure. So
And
it's
he
just
will.
about yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got that dynamic range, isn't he? And he's got that
His
musical
vocabulary
intuition.
is I don't think there's many guitarists in the pop and rock tradition that could surpass his vocabulary on guitar.
Yeah.
Because you don't get me wrong, I adore my David Gilmour and Mark Knopfler and Eric Clapton as much as anybody.
Yeah.
They're like my uncles in music. I grew up with their music,
Yeah.
but they have their go-to licks,
Sure.
which sound
Yeah.
amazing, and we all love them. But they're kind of I hate to say it, but they're all in a bit of a rut.
Yeah.
You can just tell their kind
Yeah.
of their vocabulary is set. Whereas with somebody like Robbie, and there's a few others out there who have so much up their sleeve, so many ideas, so
Yeah.
many scales, so many uh, avenues that they can go down.
Yeah.
It's just astonishing to watch them go.
What I really yeah. I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying about Robbie. And some of the things that come to mind straight away is like just talking straight up electric guitar playing.
Mm-hmm.
He's got completely his own thing going there. But then you add the ability to play the slide guitar in the way that he does, acoustic finger style in the way that he
Yeah.
does, and then obviously have the decades of studio and live experience with all of these artists. He's just quite a unique individual, isn't he? And but so humble with it as well, which is one of the
I know.
coolest things about him. Is that because I played with him about 2 years ago, or no, not even about a year and a half ago, and I've met him a few times over the years, and he's always really pleasant to be around.
Yeah.
And he's a very down to earth guy. And there wasn't any of this because I'm personally not the kind of guitar player to start trying to be competitive with people or anything like that. I just enjoy playing music. Um, but he, he's not got any of that in him. He's literally just purely music
Yeah,
without the ego bullshit.
exactly. He's the guy that we all take a break. We've been playing for an hour and a half in rehearsal studio, and it's got really hot, and we'll take a break, and we'll go and get some air, we'll go to the toilet. He'll still be playing guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
He'll just be sat there playing guitar. He more than anyone I've ever met loves playing guitar. That's what makes him so good, is that I don't think he can go very long without playing. It's just like breathing to him. It's everything. It's incredible, and his memory is astonishing when it comes to remembering music. The other day we were talking about John Martin in the rehearsal studio, and he just detuned his guitar quickly and started playing Small Hours perfectly.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which is a bizarre tuning to start with.
Yeah.
But a very difficult chord progression as well. Really properly difficult chords. I can't do them. I don't even know what he's playing. But he's that kind of guitarist. It's all in there. But yeah, when you're talking about his sort of personality, he's the one that goes around every single person, shaking their hands and saying goodbye. He'll never just up and leave. There's no ego in that guy whatsoever.
Yeah, but I find all the best ones, like, don't get me wrong, of course there's some really talented musicians out there with massive egos, but I don't know, I just find the ones that play from their heart, like the pure ones, they're just the ones that leave that stuff at the door and just realise, I think they call it the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the more that you know, the more that you realise you don't know.
Right.
And even someone like Robbie, who knows an awful lot, knows that there's still stuff that he doesn't know or doesn't know how to do. And there is this feeling that, it's a humbling experience, I think. And I think part of that awareness is what continues you to improve and get better over the years. And I see that in him, like whenever we've spoken, and just a lovely human with a great sound.
Absolutely, yeah. You're so right, and I think the whole Dunning-Kruger thing is fascinating, and it's like, I think it's kind of it's like the majesty of music humbles you, doesn't it? It's not the ego. It's not the kind of what music does for you. It's so much bigger than your self-involvement. It's about creating something way bigger, maybe, than ourselves. And I think that's one of the most magical things about music and recorded music, and how these notes leave the fingers and the strings and go through this signal chain, and then eventually find their ways out through people's headphones and speakers and all around the world. And that's a very kind of humbling thing, I think. When it's seen for what it really is, it's a kind of magic.
For sure.
As Queen sang. It's a kind of magic. It's a kind of magic.
It's a kind of magic. But what you just said there, though, that is so true. Like, I think about stuff like that, and it makes it, because for me these days I don't really, like, I think about music being not the most important thing in my life, but at the same time I feel like it is so important. Like, it's a thing that I've got to a place now where I'm okay with it where it is, which is a point where it feels like it's within me and it's within my heart, but it's not. I don't put it before all things. I put my well-being and myself first, and then from that, if I get that right, then everything that comes after it can only be better. And I just I think that part of that process is when I'm sharing music with others these days. I kind of treat it a little bit more carefully in the sense that I'm trying to deliver something that could potentially move someone, and that's
It can save
the
lives.
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. On the biggest level, yeah, it can.
A lot of our audience, okay, so I'm gonna get a bit deep now, but I think it's really important, and we're kind of naturally getting there in the conversation anyway. But our our audience with Held by Trees is probably 80% at um, any live gig men. It's a male audience,
Yeah,
and I was I was devastated when I realised recently that I've known I've known eight, maybe nine, because one I'm not sure about, men in my life. I'm not even 40, and I've known 8 or 9 young men take their own lives. And music can, like you just said, move people and give them hope and meaning and um, lift them, lift us, not them. It's us. It's all of us.
yeah,
And I'm one of the reasons the first album is called Solace is because I really believe music is a source of peace and solace. And some of the things people have said to me, both at gigs and sent me messages about what the music means, fills me with such ambition and such a kind of a sense of motivation to make music that gives people beauty and gives people hope and gives people love really. It sounds very cheesy, but I think it's possible. I think we can make music that is so packed full of love and empathy that it can actually lift people out of where they might feel low and might feel lonely and might feel disconnected. I think music can connect us, and that's what the whole project is about, to be honest.
mm, for sure. About connection, and we've used words here that if you're using them and you just said, "Mate, this might seem cheesy," but really, I mean, the essence of it is that you know you are writing music from the heart, and you're wanting to connect with people. We're all having this human experience on what is quite a mental planet,
Yeah,
and we've got what can we do or use to make sense of this stuff, or what gives us, like you said, solace, which is just such a great name for the album. um, no, I love it, and it's okay to go a little bit deep there because I think it's what it's about sometimes.
I just think, can music save? Can music give enough hope to people who are very low and very distressed? There's actually a story. It's actually a Bible story. It's way back in the Old Testament, and it's about King David. And he was a shepherd boy who played instruments. And the king, called Saul, heard all about him. And Saul used to have these fits of rage, and David would come and play and calm him down with his music. And there's something about
Uh,
that. And
yeah,
I think about those 8 guys that I've known. Some of them well, some of them not so well, but I've known each of them, and it motivates me so much to want to reach through, if it's possible, to reach through to people. I look at all the blokes that come out and watch us, and from what some of them have told me, they're going through stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I so want to bring something beautiful to them, something hopeful to them, and that's really the modus operandi with where we're going.
No, I love it, Dave. That's a mission right there, and that's what you guys are doing. Okay, so to just take things just out of this is quite a jump in topic, but I do want to cover it. So for Solace, you mentioned the two EPs. How did you record Solace guitar wise? Like you and Robbie, I assume, and then there was a couple of other players that you mentioned.
Yeah.
What were you using? Where were you? What was the deal with
the answer to this is incredibly disappointing.
Okay,
like, from a gearhead point of view, like
right.
It's so, and this is true. So on Solace, on a track called In the Trees, and also Rain After Sun and Mysterium. So those are the three that I came up with first.
Yeah.
I've literally kept the first guitar that I recorded because it had that tentative, spontaneous quality to it, and it was this guitar. So this is my 1979 Japanese telly.
Yeah.
Just nothing changed on it. Just two single coils.
Love it.
You know, simple as it gets.
Yeah.
And straight into one cable, straight into my what was I using at the time? The Audient. My Audient sound card, straight in. That's it. And the plug-in of a Vox.
Right. Okay. So that's it. I was with bated breath there. I was like, no sound card.
Logic, straight into the Audient, straight into Logic, into the Vox amp model thing. Yeah. And that was me. Robbie recorded for Solace. Robbie recorded at his house, and he's got he always uses great gear, and you can hear it obviously in the tone.
Yeah.
And he recorded at his house in his music room. David Knopfler, I'm not sure what he used. Eric Bibb recorded acoustic, and that was done, mic'd up properly with his engineer in Sweden. Tim Rennick, pretty sure he was amped up, but I'm not sure what it was. Because we were all in lockdown. We were all over the place.
Right, yeah, because because that's a good thing there you just touched on, because I wanted to picture all of this process unfolding. So you were all recording remotely, doing your own methods, and that
with guitars, yes. Oh, I did a bit of guitar at Room with a View. A little bit of I had a Gretsch at the time, and it put a bit of Gretsch through. I think it's actually Robbie's, but it lives at Room with a View. It's a big Vox head and cab thing.
So is the Vox with the telly? That's your thing, is that right? Or
definitely for Held by Trees. I've had a Vox AC15 for about 15 years, and that's been regularly my go-to. You can probably just about see my half stack in the corner here.
Yeah, it's a Marshall.
Yeah, that's right. It's a JCM 2000, which I generally keep on clean and push loads of pedals through. I've had a Fender Blues Deluxe But for gigs these days, and again, this is not a sexy answer at all, but I love the Boss Katana. I've got
Right.
a 50-watt clean jobby, clean,
Yeah.
nothing on it other than a smidge of reverb,
Mm.
and it takes pedals so well, and it's light, and it's
Yeah.
reliable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Boss Katana is the one I'm gigging the most with, Held by Trees.
Wow, I'm glad you touched on that. That's really cool to know.
Well, I do love nice gear, and I love my Heritage Edition, which the Vox AC15 I have is one of the British hand wired jobbies, and
Yeah.
I adore it. It sounds incredible, and I record with it a lot at home. And I've been recording with the Marshall a bit this week. Guitar-wise, you can probably see behind me a few.
Yes. Yeah.
So that obviously that's just like a Mexican jazz master.
Yeah.
Just the one next to it that way. That's
Yeah.
a Graham Coxon signature Telecaster.
Right.
From Fender. Graham Coxon's my favourite guitarist ever. Next is a handmade Thomas Gray guitars, thin line with two P90s.
Right.
I've got this is a Squier. It's a baritone.
Right.
Which is very
Nice.
pleasant to play. Really thick strings and thick sound. I've just this week assembled a Doomsday pedal board.
Right. Okay.
So it's not my main gigging pedal board, but I'll see if I can hold this up because I'm very proud of it. Let's see. So, I love fuzz. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Love a bit of fuzz. So
Love fuzz.
This is my Doomsday board.
Right. Okay.
These are pedals that I've had knocking around for absolutely ages and not been on my main board.
Right.
So obviously there you got your Big Muff Russian jobby.
Yeah.
Zevex Fuzz Factory.
Yeah.
EHX Memory Toy Neoclone Chorus and a
Right.
Metal Muff. A Metal Muff? I don't use that.
Yeah.
Just some digital delay with some nice weird stuff on it. Digital reverb. But this is the new Fender Shields Fuzz Blender.
Right.
So Kevin Shields from My Bloody Valentine.
Yes. Yeah.
Designed this with Fender, and it's got like sag on it and
Right.
some really destructive, disgusting tones.
Like an incredibly loud band.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
as a complete random side note,
like your ears are stopping working.
Yes, that loud. Yes.
Cutting out. Yeah. And then a full tone drive.
Nice. Yeah.
Which I got in New York about 15 years ago, and it's a lot of fun, this board, because I'm combining the fuzzes and getting some disgusting tones out of it.
Yeah, I love fuzz. I love the way that your different fuzz textures break up, and they're don't get me wrong, I love overdrive pedals, but there's a certain characteristic with a fuzz. And obviously, you've got your big muffs, your fuzz faces, all these different kinds of flavors.
Yeah.
And they all behave almost like these crazy little animals, where they're ready to be torn apart at the seams.
I like super pure. And a lot of Held by Trees is incredibly pure, even to the point where we take out the any kind of crunch mic from the room or anything like that.
Sure.
So it's very, very clean.
Yeah.
Or I like things so messed up and so fuzzed and distressed.
Yes.
And it just depends what mood I'm in, because I either want sort of stratospheric clean guitar heaven, like your Gilmour solos,
Sure.
or something like Nick Drake on acoustic.
Yeah.
Just sublime purity. Or I like Kevin Shields and Robert Poss from Band of Susans, or obviously Graham Coxon
Yeah.
and Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth, and all these guys that push guitars into these kind of weapons of mass destruction. They're kind of like the most punishing tones. And I'm not really a metal guy.
Sure.
Metal and all the different types of metal doesn't really do it for me. But I love noise.
Yeah.
So I love sort of indie noise. Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Jr. and obviously My Bloody Valentine and
yeah.
And I kind of swing quite violently between the whether I want to make something utterly pure or utterly disgusting and degraded.
Right.
I
know. I'm so with you. Well, what you've got there, all of these sonic textures, and you're not afraid to veer between one extreme to another. And I think that's giving you a much broader dynamic palette to draw from. You're not just saying, okay, here's this lovely clean sound, which we all know and love, but there's this other side of it where you wanting to get crazy and just explosive, and because that it's almost, and this is probably going unnecessarily kind of deep on it, but it's almost like it's just like nature, isn't it? It's
I'm
nature.
So glad you said that.
It's the whole thing. It's just like right from the wind blowing through the trees to like volcanoes roaring out fire and smoke. It's just the whole palette, draw from it.
And I just like extremes of anything, really. And I know this is kind of still in that deep vein, really. And I know something of your journey as a person, and sort of how you went after extremes when you were younger, and in certain ways. And I'm very similar. And I don't like the middle grey area. I want extremes of black or white, or and I'm trying to learn to live in that middle.
Right.
Musically, a bit, because you couldn't say "Held by Trees" is perfectly clean or perfectly dirty.
No.
There's stuff in the middle, and I like messy playing as well. I like messy.
Yeah.
Like I've left a lot of mess and human texture in the edits, because that's what gives music empathy, is when you can hear the human.
For sure. Yeah, that imperfect, perfect sort of thing. Like, and the thing that you mentioned earlier about recording, when you said about recording straight into the sound card with your telly, straight into a Vox modeler, I mean, it was interesting to me, but at the same time, it was like you've got what it is that you needed in those first takes. Why redo it? It doesn't have to be crank like a Vox AC15 mic'd with a perfect thing. Sometimes you just get something right and it's good,
So I'll read you the quote that we put in the sleeve notes for Solace.
Yeah.
From Mark Hollis from Talk Talk. He said, "When you improvise, you play something for the first time, and you kind of play it at its peak. And if you kind of like play something and then you think, oh, I like that, and then you replay it, you never quite get it. Before you play two notes, learn how to play one note. And don't play one note unless you've got a reason to play it."
Right.
So that's the quote we put in the sleeve notes, because it kind of that's the guiding ethic. And when I came to think about, with this guitar that I put down without thinking much about it, and another point on that is that I always detune the B string to C for most of Held by Trees music. I have the B tuned to a C and the E tuned to a D for some of it.
Right. Okay.
At the high end, yeah.
Sure.
I'll quickly demonstrate that. But the thing is, going back to that thing, is that I just couldn't get the feel again.
Yeah.
I couldn't get it.
So if it's there, it's working. Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on. Oh, hang on. Edit this bit out, won't you?
Yeah, I'll just cut it out.
So
no, I won't. That sounds a bit more like it's doing something.
yeah, I'm. Can't really. Hang on. Oh, for crying out loud! I can't do it under pressure.
We'll just. I'll
Edit
take
it
your word
out,
for it.
please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We'll
Hang
pretend that. Yeah.
One sec. This one is left in that tuning. So.
Oh, okay. Right, we'll just listen to that.
Right. There we go.
Ah,
So.
lovely. Yeah.
Let's see if I can quickly fire this up. I don't know. Sometimes with recording on podcasts and stuff, background noise doesn't come out very well.
Yeah.
So we'll try this, but I just wanted to sort of see if I can get a bit more on it, because it's known sometimes as the Purple Rain.
Yes,
sound.
I was just thinking that. Yeah. Yeah. Like, that was one of my first thoughts.
Hopefully we'll get something coming through. Sorry, you got him as well.
Bless. Oh.
So that I use that quite a lot, and it works really well with these chord shapes.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So it just really changes up that, like you just said, different sort of palette to work with, different sort of sound. You're out of the regular standard.
So this is the Held by Trees tuning, where the E is still E now. I've gone back to standard, but this is
yeah.
It's not perfectly in tune. You have to forgive me, but
yeah.
But yeah, that first in the trees was just, and then
love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very quick. And
all right, I appreciate that, Dave. That was a nice insight into what you're doing with the guitar.
What you were just saying though is true. It just takes you outside of your usual. Like you have to kind of not do. I couldn't just do D. I had to play it differently. I had to play the chord, and I'm not very technical with music. I don't know all the. I don't know much, but all I can do is follow my ear and my instinct.
Sure.
And sometimes chords want to be played a certain way. The voicing of the chord is suggesting something to you, something tentative or something something mysterious, because you don't really understand what's going on yourself. So it's kind of pulling something else out of you. So I keep doing that. Because
that's great, man.
Yeah.
So just before we break this up, because for the sake of time, I've had a lovely chat with you today, Dave. Yeah. Where are you guys playing next? Because I really want to come and see you guys play. Are you playing anywhere around this area?
We're not playing again until 2024. I'm not sure when this will come out, but we are playing we've got a gig in Chelmsford. We've got stuff coming through for Coventry.
Yeah,
We'll go back to London for sure. It's always good.
yeah.
We're doing a couple of festivals next year, but yeah, I'm hoping to put together a bit of a tour end of 2024.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, I'll keep my eyes out, and hopefully there'll be something around that I can go and see. Because I was going to come and see you guys play at some point. I can't remember what it was, but I was already gigging, and I was a bit
Yeah,
gutted. I think, was it an Absolute Music day
yeah. We did
a while
a
ago?
celebration. We did a celebration to celebrate a year of Solace being out
That
at
that was it.
Absolute Music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I missed it because I had a gig that I couldn't miss, and I was
that's
pretty
right.
gutted.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
hopefully I'll catch you guys at another point. Where can the guys that are going to watch this? Where can they go and listen to your music, buy your music?
Yeah, so Solace is out on all the streamers and on CD and vinyl in all good record shops. Bandcamp, got lots on Bandcamp. We've got
Yeah,
the Eventide EP is coming out on streamers in November. And yeah, so there's CDs, vinyl, and streaming and download. So hopefully something for everyone.
sure. Yeah, no, I'm sure there will be. Um, well, it's been great to catch up with you, Dave, and thank you so much for giving me some of your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, mate. It's lovely to see you, albeit just on a screen. Hopefully we'll get
Yeah,
together before too long.
yeah, yeah, definitely. No, it'd be great to see you in person at some point, and I'll keep my ears and my eyes open for your music as coming up. So I'm a big fan.
Thank you so much. Well, likewise, you know how much I respect you, sir, and
Oh,
your incredible playing.
oh, too kind. All right, Dave. It was good to talk to you. Cheers.
Likewise, bro. Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. Bye.